All right, y'all. So, single and satisfied, part three. So, where do we leave off? So, he said, "Oh, I didn't want to leave here without saying bye." And that brought a smile to my heart because I was like, "Oh, that's really sweet," because people usually walk by here and they're just being nosy, but it's nothing that I can do because this is a public place. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing I can do about it. And he was just like, "Would it be okay if I prayed for you?" And I said, normally I would say no because I'm not in agreement with all spirits. And sometimes a person might be thinking they're doing all the right thing, but it's all out of vanity. And what you're praying for is actually a curse because it ain't like that. You know what I'm saying? But I said, yeah, you can pray for me. So he prayed for me this really simple, appropriate prayer. It was very simple, appropriate. It wasn't contrived, contrived, whatever. It was just an appropriate prayer. And when he prayed for me, it brought tears to my eyes because I was like, wow, what a gift. What a gift. I have to absolutely say yes to that. Prayer after you've gone and you've blessed the whole outside area, after you've gone and sang these beautiful songs and focused and meditated, and then I get the culmination of it all. Yes, absolutely yes. So it was wonderful. I really enjoyed that. And the thing about it, the part that I didn't mention is that before we left each other's presence the last time, and this is the same day, by the way, when I was just like, hey, go on and finish your morning routine because I want you to get this done before this guy gets here. And also, I have things that I want to do. When I got to my location to start working on my personal stuff, my meal planning for the morning, I started to walk back over there because, that part of me wanted to be like, yo, give me your email so I can send you a digital newsletter. But, God talked to me. God literally stopped me in my tracks. I stopped and I was like this. And I turned to face the other way. And it was like a direct connection. Me and God was having this internal communication where God was like, don't go over there. Let him have his space and do what he needs to do. And, if I didn't send you over there, don't go over there. Leave him alone. I was like, all right, let me go on about my business. Now, the reason I knew that was God talking to me was because, and it's not like an audio voice or anything like that. You feel it in your spirit, okay? For me, I don't know. For some people, it might be. But because when I was at the gym a year or so ago, there was so much corruption, things going on around me. The girl that worked there, she took it to God because, they would say all kinds of stuff. They just didn't want me there. I was working out like literally all the time. I had recordings of it. They got rid of the videos. But, and it's so funny because I don't recall, or maybe I've done that before, but I never noticed me doing it. But I noticed her doing it, where that's what happened. She stopped before she did anything, before she spoke to me, before she spoke to her coworkers, before she spoke to any of the guests. She stood there, and while she was about to look in the mirror and clean the mirror, you could see her just turn her head up. And you could see you could see it. You can really see it. It's like an inner dialogue. I could see the dialogue and I knew what was going on. She was talking to God. God had tapped her and was like, hey, and same thing happened to me that day that I was just telling you. God tapped me and was like, don't do that. Don't go over there, And so I minded my own business. So with that being said, where do we leave off before I jump back there? Yeah, so I was thankful for the prayer. It was a gift, the sacrament and all this and all that and the other. So, and it really brought tears to my heart. And I said, well, thank you, because what you did, and I told him, this is what I told him. I said, the reason I allowed him to pray for me was because, I felt that he was genuine and sincere. And I felt it here, like in my womb. I felt it in my womb, And I said, speaking of womb, and of course, I didn't want to do this because every single time I feel like I have to mention something. I was like, speaking of the womb, I have a newsletter that I publish for women called Woven from the Womb. And it's women of valor, excellence, and nobility. And it's from the womb, which is warriors of missionary battles and blessings. And I said, because you can't have blessings without battles. And obviously he could see my state and my situation. And through our conversation, he was telling me about, different things he noticed about marginalized people. And I don't think he got the point that, yours truly, baby, yours truly. But, I kind of let him know because that's the way I am. I tell everything. I'm like, well, you saw me. That was me that you saw. It was me right there. And so he was just like, oh, okay. So then we went from there to me talking about the woven from the womb. Women of Missionary Battles and Blessings, and how you have to have battles to have blessings. And I told him how that correlated, because I said, I know you're not a woman, but that correlated to my Move for Men's newsletter, which is mission oriented, valiant, and equipped. And, most men, they want to say that they're courageous. But in order to have courage, you have to have courage under fire, because if you ain't got no fire, you ain't got no courage. Just like if you ain't, it's a woman, if you're not experiencing and fighting battles, you're not getting your blessings, And so this is the battle that brought me here today, because this is fast forward a week later. The situation, my glasses, I told you about the prison ministry, and I told you about that because I had a situation where I found a counterfeit bill. I didn't know it was counterfeit because I can't see nothing without my glasses. But, and obviously the cashier didn't either, because she passed it right along too. But because of that, that made me do the prison ministry. And then because of that, that Dollar Tree or whatever, that's the only place where I can buy these glasses for $1.50. These are actually Blu-ray protector glasses. I have so many stories that go along with this. It's like, from manure, the most fertile things grow. So when CC said count it, CC Wine said count it all joy, it's true. So what ends up happening is, because, and I'm so careful with those glasses, because the way that I got those replacement glasses, I was like, well, I need to look around and see what other places have glasses. Do you know that nowhere else around here sells the reading glasses at the level that I need? So my last stop was Rose's. I don't normally go to Rose's because the stores that I know are the ones that accept alternate forms of payment. But this, I know Rose's didn't. But I was like, well, now I need this thing, and it doesn't require the kind of payment that I usually use. So let me find out they have it. So I stood out there for an hour with this woman. Before I didn't even know my watch was set super fast. But I stood out there, and long story short, and I'll tell you this story in a Woven from a Womb video, but she ended up having, she was a person that said she don't like people. I was out there an hour early. She went on about her business, even chatted it up with me, then had her employee go get my glasses for me. I gave her the money, of course, but she went to get my glasses for me. And those same glasses were the ones that I took such care, I thought, to make sure, from me walking for about 50 yards, somehow they got lost, And when I got to my destination where I was going, I was too tired to go back and look. And I said, they're probably in my bag somewhere. But probably what happened, and I can't be mad at these people if it did happen, was they probably got dropped somewhere. And probably some teenagers or somebody came by later and found them and took them, out of either another marginalized person that needed them took them, or and I dropped them, so whatever, they didn't know who it belonged to, or either teenagers took them and was like, oh, that's cool, picked them up and put them down somewhere else where I would never find them, or thought it'd be cute to just play with some glasses. So I didn't have them. But these glasses have blue light protector, and they were only $1.50. Well, they say that they do. So this is how that took me on my journey today. So now I thought about that guy, and that day that I met him that day, and I thought about him because as he was leaving, I was so appreciative, because I'm always very appreciative to the point where people are uncomfortable. But I was so appreciative, and I said, well, wow, what a gift, and I was really amazed, and I was like, well, thank you, I appreciate that, and I love you with the love of Christ. And he said, I love you, and he walked off. And to me, that was a mic drop, because one of the things, and all these stories are interwoven and connected together, woven from the womb, because one of those things about the church that I attended regularly, or did, is that's how I joined that church. Because and there's a whole, when I read to you the leadership newsletter, I'll get into that, but I love it with the love of Christ is something that I trained that particular pastor to say. They took it, readapted it into their own. Then when I said I wanted some, an acknowledgement for that, then they sent me a video and said, oh, I've been doing this since October. And they sent me a downloaded clip. They didn't send me the link. And I was like, that's kind of suspicious. So there was a whole thing about it. But anyhow, the last time I saw that particular pastor, it was the same thing, and again, they did their not so great thing. And when I did my leadership newsletter, I'll share it with you guys. But they were just like, when I left, I have to finish this next time.